The Void, Series 1, Episode 1, The Naled, Chapter 4.
Are you sure the medical suite is ready? We're just checking the inventory, but everything seems ready except for Surgery 4.
Commander Ellen Voight rolled her eyes. Nothing ever worked on an Alpha voyage. What's wrong with it?
The scanner doesn't seem to be properly calibrated, Doctor Takuma griped. That should have been done when it was installed, but I guess some technician missed it. Well, at least that isn't a major problem. They've had all the time in the world to install it, Dr. Takuma added. The installation should have been done by a proper medical technician, not some glorified technical support.
Voight had only spent a short time in the company of Doctor Akari Takuma and was already coming to realize that she was someone who was very particular and not shy of expressing it.
Will it cause any delay in the launch? Well, no, we have plenty of redundancy, but it would take some time to fix.
I'm sure your team will have it in hand. There were plenty of teething problems, it seemed, but that was normal for a new ship. With all the complex interlinked systems and advanced AI running through everything, how could it possibly be fully working by launch? Still, in the bigger picture, it was an achievement to have met the criteria for launch, let alone surpass it. But that didn't help with the constant nagging.
Are there any other issues, Doctor? We're still waiting for Dr. Anderton. He hasn't checked in yet.
Still? Voight sighed. He should have been here 2 hours ago. Kane? Yes, Commander. The ship's AI voice emanated from the ether, calm and polite as always.
Do you have any knowledge as to the whereabouts of Dr. Anderton?
The last update placed him on Sparta's space elevator. He's expected to arrive at around 45 minutes local time.
Did he give any reason for why he's running so late?
In his update, he cited transportation delays with the maglev service. Another classic issue. There were always crew who were late for embarkation. She had no doubt there would be plenty of others, given the population size of the Liberator. Occasionally, people would even miss the departure, and they would be ferried to the next port of call to meet up with the ship.
He should make it if he's on the elevator, Voight commented. Have a polite word with him, Doctor. Nothing serious or official, but I don't want this becoming a habit with him.
Voight didn't want to wield a disciplinary on a first cycle on a new assignment. She usually tended to be lenient on one-off situations. It was when patterns developed that she would become more draconian. Rare instances were only worth punishing if something particularly heinous occurred. Besides, she felt it would sour what should be a positive day.
Yes, sir, Akari responded. It's a much nicer medical center than the Benavides.
Voight commented on the surroundings.
This is much more comfortable. Nothing but the best for the flagship, Akari replied.
Voight had been impressed with everything about the ship. It was such an upgrade compared to her previous vessel, and she couldn't believe that she'd been assigned to such a prestigious post. She'd obviously impressed someone further up the chain of command. She felt like an imposter, like she had cheated her way into this position. She tried to remind herself that she deserved this, that she'd earned it, but that little voice within her kept calling her a fraud. She tried to subdue it, but it remained, persistent and niggling. The sooner they could leave, the sooner she could stop dealing with all these trivial logistical problems and silence her inner critic. The main door slid open as a couple of medics left. It was then that she became aware of a man just outside, surveying the center from the outside. She recognized him immediately from the personnel file she had pored over. She immediately moved to intercept him.
Captain Schaefer, a pleasure to meet you, sir. She introduced herself, shaking his hand.
Commander Voight, Schaefer retorted to the point. I've heard a lot about you.
All good things, I hope.
Oh, your record is spotless. Glowing references all over, Schaefer flattered. Still, this is a big step up from your previous post.
I'm grateful to be given such a high-profile command position.
I know the feeling. But still, it's going to be a big challenge as well, Schaefer pointed out. I'm sure that we can work together to surmount any of those challenges.
Yes, sir,
Voight replied, a little guarded. She knew the routine when introducing yourself to those under your command. Much of it was all an attempt to alleviate any anxiety about the situation, but there was always some degree of assessment as well. It can be intimidating, I know, meeting your new commanding officer, Schaefer expressed, sensing a slight unease. I do try to make it easier, but I'm also the first to admit it's not my strong suit. But don't worry, as long as you do your best, that's all I ask.
I always give my best, sir.
Then we'll get along fine. Voight worried that her nervousness was obvious. Schaefer seemed to pick up on it quickly enough, but then it was a normal human reaction. She'd seen it often enough herself. She could see Schaefer was trying to be as amiable as possible and trying to put her at ease, but he was quite an imposing individual. With his large frame, he towered over her, and his features suggested a serious individual, not prone to levity. He also projected an air of confidence and no small amount of purpose. "How are the preparations going?" Schaefer asked.
"Aside from a few issues here and there, and a few latecomers, we're on course to launch at the expected time."
Good, Schaefer nodded. "Command staff all on board?"
"Yes, sir. This is Doctor Akari Takuma."
"Good to meet you, Doctor," Schaefer introduced, shaking the doctor's hand.
"Good to meet you too, Captain."
"How are you settling in?"
"We have a few issues, but the medical facilities are first class," Akari expressed. "I'm looking forward to seeing what we can discover out there and put all of this to good use. For research, I mean."
"Be careful what you wish for, Doctor," Schaefer warned. "I understand you have a strong research background, rather than an operational one."
"That's correct. I specialize in immunology and have helped develop a number of vaccines, but I have a few other strings to my bow as well."
"A useful skill to have on board," Schaefer remarked. "One of the problems with exploring space is the sheer number of different diseases we encounter, so your experience will be a great asset."
"It's one of the reasons I'm here, sir," Akari explained. "There are so many bacteriological threats in the universe. The best way to deal with them is to get out on the frontier."
"Well, I hope we don't have to utilize those skills, Doctor, but given what my experience has taught me, we're almost certainly going to need them at some point," Schaefer advised. "But I don't want to eat up too much of your time right now, so I'll leave you to it. However, I would like you to attend a meeting before we're due to launch, just to brief you all about our first assignment. I'll send you all a reminder once I make my way to the command section."
"I'll be there," Akari confirmed.
"Then I'll see you later," Schaefer finalized. "Commander, if you would accompany me?"
"Yes, sir."
Voight dutifully followed the captain as he made his way out of the medical center. His tone was friendly, but it did imply there was something more he wanted to discuss in a more private setting, or at least a less busy one. "I want us to have a good working relationship, Commander, and to do that, I want to build trust between us. So I'll be as honest as I can with you, and I hope that you will confer the same privilege to me."
"Don't worry, sir. I'll let you know when I disagree."
Schaefer allowed himself a small smile. "That's nothing less than I would expect," Schaefer agreed. "Some may prefer the company of people who agree and nod compliantly, but I'm not one of them. If I'm making a mistake, I damn well want someone who's going to let me know and prevent me from doing something disastrous."
"The way I see it, sir, is that's part of my job. The role of commander is not only to support the captain in the hierarchy, but also act as a check and balance within the chain of command. It would be remiss of me to allow you to follow an ill-advised course of action," Voight answered honestly. "Plus, I have my responsibilities to the crew to factor into it."
"Good answer," Schaefer nodded, impressed. "The chain of command is important, but any leader worth their salt knows that it can't substitute sound judgment."
"Disagreements are healthy in any decision-making environment, as long as it doesn't conflict with the expediency required in emergencies," Voight opined. "You can't have innovation without diverging opinions, so in a command situation, this offers alternatives that may not have been considered otherwise."
"But we do need to constrain it sometimes because of the expediency you mentioned," Schaefer added. "I agree. Many opinions may give you alternatives, and having that choice may be essential at times. It does slow down the process, though, so I like to know as early as possible if there are any alternatives available." Schaefer was definitely assessing her, weighing up the responses she gave. Voight didn't like it, but she couldn't really blame him for it, as she would often do it herself.
"If you've read my file, sir, you know my history, and you know I'm not afraid of making hard decisions."
"I know what I've read, but I'd like to hear it from you," Schaefer revealed. "There's the official record, and then there's the truth, as they say."
"It's all official record with me, sir."
"Anyway, as I was saying about building trust through honesty, I gave it some thought and I decided it would be better to just lay my cards on the table and be straight with you. When I was given your profile, I did have one misgiving about you."
"What was that, sir?"
Voight stuttered slightly, startled by his admission.
I can't imagine what was in my record.
It wasn't in your record. Everything in it marks you out as being perfectly suited for command, Schaefer explained. What it is your age, or more precisely, your experience.
You think I'm too inexperienced to be a commander?
To be frank, yes, Schaefer replied bluntly. It can be a difficult job, and the further up the ranks you go, the harder it gets. I made commander a full decade after you, and it still damn near killed me. See this scar? Schaefer pointed to a scar that ran down the back of his head, from around the point where the skull joins the spine to his shoulder. That was the result of my own inexperience, Schaefer alluded. While I'm saying the command can be exceptionally demanding, and you are by far the youngest commander in the fleet ever.
Voight was annoyed at his patronage. Gone was the imposter syndrome she felt earlier, now replaced with its argumentative cousin, indignance. I may be young, sir, but I have earned my commission.
I'm not saying you haven't, and like I said, everything in your record points to your capability. I'm just saying this can be an extreme job, and experience can act as a buffer between you and the job. The more of it you have, the better the buffer.
And you feel I lack this buffer?
I'm trying to judge whether you have the appreciation for how hard command can be, and the toll it can take on you.
I've exceeded expectations so far.
But that was on the Benavides. As I said earlier, this is quite a step up.
And I'm ready for it.
I hope so, Commander, Schaefer confirmed.
Sir, how do you think this is going to foster trust between us?
Trust is built with honesty, but honesty can be brutal, Schaefer reasoned. It might sting a little now, but eventually you'll come to realize I'm not going to bullshit you.
I'm not sure it works that way.
My approach is not for everyone, I know, Schaefer admitted. But don't think I don't want you as my right hand. I just want you going into it with your eyes wide open, so to speak. I fully expect and hope that you continue adding distinctions to your record.
Don't worry about me, sir. I've no intention of changing that line of progression.
Excellent. I'll leave you to it then. I'll message you in due course once I make it to my quarters.
Schaefer made a small farewell gesture and made his way up the corridor in the general direction of the center of the ship. Voight slowed to a halt as she took stock of the conversation she'd just had with her new commanding officer. To be perfectly honest, she wasn't sure how to take it. She didn't like the insinuation that she was too young for the position. Yes, she was young for the rank, but she had met all the criteria for the promotion and even exceeded them. She understood experience was important. I wasn't above asking advice from those with more experience, but it wasn't the be-all and end-all of command. There were many factors that made up a good leader, and what she lacked in experience, she felt she made up for in other areas. Despite this offense, there were positives to take from the encounter. Firstly, she got the impression that he valued a professional but open approach, even if it was at the expense of some social skills. This suggested that he would be receptive to her reasoning, given the correct context. She also liked his encouragement to contradict him when she felt it was justified. It was essential in any command structure that the superior should be approachable by the subordinate and open to their input. The captain always needed a counterbalance, and it was encouraging to hear a new commanding officer espousing similar beliefs. The conversation had also quelled any thoughts of inadequacy or nervousness, replacing them with cold, hard certainty, inspired by the indignance she had felt. But then, had this been intended by Schaefer? Some of the conversation was definitely intended to allay her nervousness, but how much? Though she had felt a little patronized by him, she was curious.